Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Joanne Stevens, and this is our Thursday call-in show. Our special guest today is Pat McKee of RenterText and Tornado First, and he's going to talk to us about those two programs that he has invented and put out to the public and the consumers and all of the park owners to use. And so I'll be introducing Pat in a moment, but he has some really valuable experience that he's going to share in investing and owning parks and buying homes and selling thousands of mobile homes. I think you're all going to feel a lot more enthusiastic about being in the mobile home park business. So before I introduce Pat, I wanted to remind people that next week, our show next week is Thanksgiving, so we will be off. And the following week, on Thursday, will be Janet Salander, a mobile home park appraiser from Cushman Wakefield. And Janet has tremendous breadth of experience in appraising mobile home parks. Also, I want to remind people to put on their calendar and be thinking about attending the MHI fall meeting, first meeting of the year. That'll be at the Ritz in New Orleans, February 4th through 6th. You can get more information by going to MHI website, or you can go to my website, joannemstevens.com. and click on Save the Date. Also, another event to put on your calendar is the annual Las Vegas Congress. It'll be at the Paris Hotel this year, April 24th through the 26th. So those are not to be missed events. I want to remind people that they may access the newsletters by either going to the website, joannemstevens.com, and just clicking on newsletters. We archive all of our newsletters on the website. Also, if you prefer to have the newsletter emailed to you or mailed to you, just let me know through an email or a call, and we'll be glad to send that to you. Before I forget, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. So, Pat, are you with us?
Hey, Joanne. Yes, I'm right here. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we start the interview, I just want to tell our listeners a little bit about Pat McKee. He's been in the mobile home park business for a very long time. He's been buying parks, owning parks, selling some of the parks that he's fixed the problems on for a long time. He sells a lot of homes, fills a lot of sites, and creates a lot of very satisfied mobile home owners in his communities. He's worked with some of the top companies, most of the top companies in our industry, such as Hometown, Parkland Ventures, just Yes Communities, just to name a few. He has a most impressive resume. And I wanted to have Pat on the show today because he first came to my attention because I met one of the CEO of his company, RenterText, at the George Allen conference a couple of months ago. But in talking to Pat, his experience, I think if you learn about his experience, you'll understand how RenterText came about. And so, Pat, do you want to maybe talk about your background and how you came to form RenterText? Because RenterText is a very significant marketing tool, but it's kind of the tip of the iceberg of what you really do.
Exactly. Well, yeah, let's talk about RenterText first.
Okay.
Because it's very succinct about, where it came from, why I have it, and where it's going. I've owned mobile home parks pretty much coast to coast since 1980. And as you know, a mobile home park is really real estate with homes on the ground that are really the engine that drive the ship, called the community. And with that, I'll talk first about, again, RenterText and why I did it. I had parks kind of scattered through multiple states throughout the United States with several thousand lots and, quite frankly, several thousand homes. And I found that trying to get our managers and leasing agents to work on evenings and weekends became very difficult, and especially on a larger scale as we grew. And they like to come in at 9 o'clock, and I'm not putting anybody down. I'm just stating some facts here that we found that our folks like to come in the morning and work till 5 or maybe even 6, and some even work till 7 or 8 at night occasionally. And our managers and leasing agents seem to have so many different jobs to do other than just managing or filling homes. They were managing communities and managing all aspects of the communities. And so we found that it was just very difficult to get our arms around all of those people all the time and become successful at filling all the homes all the time. And vacancies were just a huge pet peeve to me. Yeah, and people say, well, 10% vacancy is okay. And I said, not really. Not when if you have a couple thousand homes, 10% or 200 homes. That's a lot of vacancies throughout a portfolio. And so what we designed RenterText for, I built it for myself and for our properties. And what we did is we built in, basically more than anything else, accountability of our leasing agents and our managers to answer that phone anytime it rang for a potential customer to come into one of our communities. And so that was number one, and hence the text messaging piece of it would text the the manager or leasing agent. And then back in the day, I would get a text message as well. And so I knew that call came in. And back in the early days of RenterText, I would actually call right behind that. I would call the proposed tenant and say, did you talk to somebody? And sometimes they would say yes, and sometimes they would say no. And so consequently, what we found is when the calls were going to a voicemail or an answering service, we basically were losing those people to someone else that took them live. So we designed this system to take calls live all the time, anywhere, anytime, because this is real estate and people are off in the evenings and weekends. And I designed a system to fix that problem. So now RenterText this is 7 years ago we developed this and used it ourselves. And then some of my friends started calling me and saying, now, wait a minute, are you 100% occupied? I said, yeah, I really am. And I've got a waiting list almost everywhere. So, well, how did you do that? And so, well, I found a way to force my people to answer the phones when the calls came in. We created a system to whereby we run ads, gee whiz, on different sites 4 and 5 times a day, stay on the front page. And so we just loaded up all these calls, brought all these people through cyberspace to our communities quickly and handled them professionally. And so that's how we did it. And then now we have, we record all those calls, we record the success of people answering those calls, and we know how that works 24/7. So that's what RenterText is all about, getting all those people live, getting into the communities live, and getting to the people live that run the communities live, and getting them out to the property as soon as possible. Because the mobile home park business is really a now business. Most of our customers out there are prospective tenants. They don't want to place 2 months from now. They don't plan that much in advance. It's just the way it is. And so we pull them out of cyberspace fast, get them in fast, and then we record that. And then we started selling RenterText. Initially, I charged years ago by the chair every time someone leased a unit. We charged $400 back then for each one. And I had several larger companies list with me, and then they started calling me and said, "Do we owe you $9,000?" I said, "Really? Do you? Did we do that well for you?" And they would say, "Wait a minute, So we revamped it and started charging just a monthly rate for an unlimited number of units in a property, because we pay by the property for all the work we do to get it there. And so we just said, we don't care if you have 20 units or 200 or 500 units per property, we just charge a flat rate. And so that's how it evolved to what it is today. But the important component there is that text message goes to the leasing agent and then to an owner, or in many cases a regional manager or a supervisor, or company owners, and we will send them to an unlimited number of people in a particular company, so everybody can watch all those calls come in, and and I've had company owners say, "Shut mine off," I'm getting all these calls, so that's kind of funny, and I shut them off years ago. I don't get them myself, but so RenterText was designed and built to get you to as near 100% occupancy as possible, and get a waiting list in all of your communities. And then, of course, we're in the apartment business too, and we're now mobile home park, apartment complexes coast to coast are listing with us. So it's growing. So that's where RenterText came from, through a pet peeve of mine to have vacancies, and it just drove me nuts to call and say, "How's it going?" to a leasing agent or a manager. And they say, "Well, it's kind of slow this week." And I go, "Well, did you run your Craigslist ads this week?" "Oh yeah." "Did you really?" "Okay." Well, and so I was at the mercy of leasing agents and managers,
yes.
And now
yes.
I'm not, and
yeah.
None of our customers no longer are. So we're not usually the leasing agent or manager's best friend, but we are the owner's best friend. And so that's what's happened with RenterText. And
Pat, I'm going to
yeah, go ahead.
Pat, I'm going to interject here just for a moment. This is a lot
Sure.
of amazing information too. So I'm just going to recap of what I heard you say, and these are, I would describe them as sea changes in this business. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time too, and I've been doing this for so long, I can actually remember when there were waiting lists at the communities. And so I think that's a revolutionary concept for now. As you know, when the financing went away, beginning in the late 1990s, the waiting lists went away too, when the industry was awash in repossessed mobile homes. And so I hope our listeners heard that you are actually creating waiting lists in your communities. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is, how do you hire and train these leasing agents and managers to take those calls, or do you just want them to, is it just a matter of, as long as they call them back, you're good with that?
No, not at all. I'm not good with that. I'm good with taking a live call out of whatever media, whether it's Craigslist or whether it's Zillow or wherever that call's coming in from, where we have professional ad writers that write ads all across the country for different properties, and they are responsible for doing a good job with that component. And then we rely on the property owners to supply us pictures of their communities and/or the properties that they want to lease or sell, by the way. And so, no, we do all this hard work to drive those people and those potential customers to our communities. And no, it's not okay to call back. And again, with a caveat, many times these people are busy leasing a unit or taking another call. And so, yes, if they can't get to it live, right, that we say in our system, in our electronic system that's routing that call, because we do pre-qualify these calls through an electronic system built into our system, asking a few questions, short questions, so that leasing agent or manager doesn't have to take 100 calls a week. They take 30 because 70 of them are pre-qualified and eliminated. So that's another thing we do is we
Wow.
But we want them to answer. We want them to answer every possible call as quick as they can. And if they don't get it live right then, call right back, because we're pulling those people off of whatever media that they're on a computer, going down the list until they find someone that will talk to them and hear their story and find out where they're coming from and where they're trying to go, and get them into the property as soon as possible. And so that's very, very important. And so we've taken all that off of the manager or leasing agent. They don't have to run their ads. They can. And now we tell people if they're already running them on Craigslist, and most people are, because it's a very wonderful medium. If they are doing that, don't stop what you're doing. Do everything you're doing. We're just an add-on. And what we found, coast to coast, is we drive about 300% the people that they're getting off of their medium wherever they are. And so we're 3 to 1 typically, which typically yields somewhere between 50 and 100 pre-qualified people a month coming to a property. And I didn't know that's with the caveat, that's an average, by the way. And so, some properties take less and some get more. I mean, some we have 150 and 200 coming a month. It depends on the market, depends on where they are. But at the end of the day, what we really are successful at doing is making our people accountable to answer that phone. So answering the phone is the key. And I hate it. I've got some customers say, well, we just don't do that to our people to make them answer a call when they're in a movie on Saturday night. I go, well, what we tell our people is, excuse me, I got to jump out just for a second, and take that very valuable call and say, I'll see you tomorrow, Monday at 9 a.m. And just take that call, get them off the internet, and tell them the exciting reason why they need to be in your property, and you've done your job, and you've done it. Get them in, and as many as you can get in there. But don't, does that make sense? Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. And I want to interrupt here again, if I may, Pat, because I think an important thing that you said, that sometimes owners of mobile home parks, whether it's one person who owns a 50-site community or an executive that owns 6,000 sites, they either have not actually, taken a call or sold a mobile home or leased a mobile home, but they're, directing people to do that. And I think the important thing that you said there that is really exciting about this business is the urgency and the immediacy of the mobile home sale or rental. It's not like selling a house, where it can take months to find the right house, to get the financing, to get the appraisal, to get the survey, to get through the punch list of all of the home inspections and the radon and on and on and on. When you get that one of those 50 to 100 pre-qualified leads, your odds are very high that you're going to sell a home or lease a home very quickly. And you don't have to fiddle around with title issues and on and on. So that is an exciting part of this business that I don't think we stress. When people are in sales, the killer in sales is how long things take to actually finalize the sale. In this business, it moves very quickly if, as a salesperson, we do our job and pick up that phone and make that appointment.
Exactly. If you don't pick up the phone, what is that person doing? They're going down a list, whether it's Craigslist. I'll use Craigslist as an example because it's kind of one of the medium leaders. They're going down Craigslist, and what they do is, you didn't answer, so they go down to the next one, and they go down to the next one, and they go down, and then they find someone that answers the call, and they say, yeah, we're over here, and let's say there's 3 mobile home park communities in that market, and they get the one they get live with, and they say, yeah, can you come out tonight? Yeah, can you come now? You're off? Okay, come on. Or can I come? It's tomorrow's Saturday morning. Can I come at 9 a.m.? I'll come and meet you, and boom, you got them. And if they're pre-qualified, and then it's a fit, they're in there, and you lost them because they went to a voicemail or someplace. And so yeah, that's very important. And you brought up an important point about how the ease of getting them qualified. It takes, sometimes it takes us a day to get somebody, but they made their application. It might not be till tomorrow before the proof. But think about it. Back in the day, when you brought up a point. Back in the day, in the 80s, when I bought my first park in 1980, so I've been here a minute. And back then, dealers filled all my stuff. I never buy a mobile home till 1990 something, and the dealers put them all in. There were dealers on every corner, but guess what? It was just as easy to buy a mobile home back in the 80s and early 90s as it is to buy a car today. Mobile home and a car, they get the same thing. You get a title. They would get approved at 3, and at 5 in the afternoon, they're moving in their home. And then, subprime lending came out. It was easier to buy a stick-built home than a mobile home in the 90s. And so people backed out of 20 million mobile home sites around the country. Several million of them backed out, went into a stick-built house, leaving the homes vacant. The finance companies went away. The dealerships went away. The trucking went away. Everybody went away, but our parks did not leave us. So the real estate was still there. So what we are doing today is we are now, in my mission, somebody asked me at a talk show the other day I was on, they said, okay, what's your motto? I said, my motto, oh, that's easy, mission before money. And so our mission is to take all of these mobile home parks that we have all across the country, and some areas are worse than others, but what people say, oh, I don't want a mobile home park next to me. Well, after I get done with the mobile home park, nobody minds it. They say, wow, it's got new homes in it, new streets, everything's fixed. And what you see above ground is usually underground, so we have to go and fix sewer lines and water lines.
Sure.
I'm doing a couple down in the Mobile, Alabama area right now. We are absolutely taking everything out of them, putting all public sewer in them, all new water lines, new sewer lines, and putting all brand new homes. I think out of 200 and some sites, about 15 or 16 homes are going to survive out of that, and everything else is going away. And we're putting all brand. Now, when we're done, the local city down there, the mayor and the code enforcement people, I'm good friends with all those guys. They said, look, you're going to be a hero on our team. And they actually said, in our county, can you just kind of go through the county and do that everywhere? And the point is that's what our industry needs. We need to update to 2017 the homes and the parks that were built in the 60s and 70s. And now it's 100% just about up to us as park owners to take the plunge and go out there and figure a way to put new homes on our real estate and increase the value of the real estate, which is the ship driven by the engine, which is the mobile home. And we've designed a way to do that to where we don't make money on our homes. We lose money on our homes, sure, and we increase the value of the real estate. That's what we do, and provide affordable housing now back in America that really hasn't been done well for a long time.
I think that's one of the things that more park owners, there's a lot more people getting into this business than there has been in the past. And one of the things that's driving that is the economic or demographic recognition that, yes, right now the economy we are in a rising economy. And yes, there is more money in this economy, but we will always have people who are earning low wages, whether you want to call it the minimum wage or whatever you want to call it, low wage people who need an affordable place to live, and they are good people, and many of them are conscientious about paying their bills and are good to manage, easy to manage, pleasant to manage. And I would think with this pre-qualifying tool that you have on RenterText, if you're producing 50 to 100 qualified leads a month, that must enable the park owner to be somewhat selective on who they sell that home to or lease that home to.
Absolutely. Of course, the more folks we drive to our properties, the pickier we can be. But the other side of that coin is, the threshold of ability to pay into our communities is really a limiting factor, and we have to be somewhere around 25% underneath the prevailing 3-bedroom, if you've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit, under the 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment complex unit.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you've got to be somewhat below that, because they are going to probably have amenities that many of our communities don't have. But we provide home ownership in a private unit, without walls and without neighbors exactly right next to us. And so we've got to be somewhat below that, and at the same time I call it the best bang for the buck, and give people a great place to live in, and a wonderful, safe community to live in. And that's what we do, and that's why we are, as we fill our units, we stay 100% occupied as we go. We really can't get our homes in quick enough. We've done as many in communities as 200 units in 12 to 18 months, which is just a rapid fill. Everybody says, "Well, you're just putting anybody in there." No, we are we're very careful about who we put in. But again, we have to put the weight of it in the real estate, and a little bit lighter weight in the home. And again, we've designed that model that works effectively. But at the end of the day, in given markets, it sways a little bit. But typically 650 to 750, what I call tag, tax, and title, is about what you're going to get in our communities. Again, that's a very brave statement, because it changes up in New York, and it changes a little bit in Florida and California and Texas, and there's some markets that are different. But generally speaking, to live in a family community across the United States, I'm close. I'm close. And so you've got to. And so anyway, you can do the math. We need our lot rentals. Everybody says, "Well, what's a lot rent there?" Let's scoot back a few years and say, well, lot rents were X when all these parks were filled up by dealers, and the house payment was pretty steady, depending on what kind of building they put on there, but the house payment was pretty steady. But lot rents should have slowly increased over the last 20 years. Well, with 80% of the parks owned by individuals around the United States, and with people leaving their communities, they didn't raise lot rents. So most of the communities we're walking into have substandard lot rents. The average lot rent around the United States is somewhere around $360 a month. That varies from state to state and from property and from market to market, but that's the national average. And so we design that within our model so that our real estate is safe and that we can afford to run our communities properly, and that's what kind of a lot rent it takes. You just can't run a community at $150 or $200 a month lot rent. Nobody can. So
yes,
anyway.
Still get calls I just get calls almost every day from people saying that their rent is $160 or $175, and it just we have every right in this business to charge enough rent to operate and maintain these properties. And also, like any business, there has to be a reasonable profit for the investors, whether it's one individual or a publicly traded company. And that's
exactly.
So having a business plan of how to do that is critical. And that's interest. Years ago when I got into this business in the early 1990s, I can remember people, at conferences or just people I would meet in the industry and saying, well, what are park owners doing about replacing aging infrastructure, streets, water lines, sewer lines, water mains, and so forth? And I rarely hear people talk about that. And that was over 20 years ago. And so I think, you know, what you're doing, making sure the streets look great, replacing the pads or the utilities to those sites, you know, it's time for park owners to step up and do that, and also realize that you're going to have to charge enough rent to pay for those things, as one would expect.
Exactly. And part of the problem that the mobile home park space has had from 1980, even some until now, as there was so much weight in the house. And so, in other words, a manufacturer would manufacture, it would go to a dealership. The dealership would have to have their markup to live and survive and keep the dealership going. The finance company would come in. Those finance companies are gone today, but they would come in and they would have to charge a rate that worked, and they would put all these add-ons. And by the time the person got into that building that was financed over 10 to 15 years, back in the day, 15 many times, their house payment was so high that there wasn't enough money left in the real estate to run a mobile home community. And that's still somewhat true today. So what we have to do is we have to, as park owners, we have to buy the buildings and really sell them. I call it's a loss. It's at a loss. But
Sure.
guess what? I charge the proper real estate rent to successfully build and make that community work. So it's not rocket science, but it's just kind of hard for people to stomach that. And they go, wait a minute, I'm not going to pay $30,000 for a house and sell it for 20. What do you think I am? I said, well, what you're doing is you're buying a real estate community. You're going to rehab that real estate community, which typically takes hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions, depending on the size. We pretty much target 200 to 300 sites and up, you know, now, and I just can't, and cluster in proper markets. But the bottom line is the formula is kind of the same for everybody everywhere, and the threshold of ability to pay for that tenant is key. And so we have to model everything around that. And so,
yes.
Or, you know, if you're priced too high, they're just going to stay a while and move out. And you saw what that did to all the finance companies. Like you said, the repo rates were 60% pretty much everywhere back in the early 2000s, late 90s to early 2000s. And we just saw that. And I mean, I was in Dallas at Associates headquarters back when they were there. And I was trying to buy a group of houses in Texas from them. I said I was trying to buy a bulk number of their used homes. And they said, well, we just think we're going to onesie twosie it. We're not going to bulk these out. And I say, well, you won't be here very long. And they laughed. What makes you think we won't be here? I said, because I know what's going on, and you won't be here. And it wasn't a year later, they were gone.
They were gone.
And Associates was gone, yeah. And so we saw that coming. So where we are today is we have communities around the country, and there's some, you know, the university, the Frank and Dave universities and all that. They've brought a lot of positive light to the industry. They brought a lot of people out, yes, and really, you know, advertised our asset class and brought a lot of notoriety to it. And I commend them for that.
Yes.
It's brought a lot of people out there that didn't know about it, but it's got to be done properly. It's got to, you really make if you want to talk about money for a second, you make your money when you buy these things. And yes, you have to have a real plan to not only buy it, but get it operating properly, get the lot rents right, get the community right, and make a wonderful place for people to live. If you're not going to do that, don't come here. You know,
right,
just don't come to the space, you know, unless you have the full plan in place. And yeah, we have the right people doing it from, you know, everywhere we are. We're doing we're doing it right, just through. And again, we're not geniuses. We've just been doing it so long, and we put all the pieces together to make it work right. And and that's it. The one other thing I want to mention is about in all these years, I had never had wind loss or any real damage, any insurance claims of any significance since in 37 years. And
sure,
and recently we were hit by an F4 tornado in Albany, Georgia. A lot of folks know about that. It was on national news. We lost 3 people. 3 people died, and we had over 200 homes destroyed. Absolutely, it looked like Hiroshima.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
wiped out. Yes, and Albany had, onto the Marine base, there were tanks flipped over. It was an F4, upwards of 250-mile-an-hour winds. Well, we didn't know what to do. I actually was approached by the news media down there, and one person asked me, said, "What are you going to do to make it safe for your people in mobile home parks?" And, I didn't sleep well for a few nights, obviously being hit that hard by a tornado.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, we thought about bomb shelters. I was storm shelters, bomb shelters, whatever you want to call them. And then it's a fairly long story, but I had a friend at the Weather Service, and I had a friend that was in the Waze mapping program from Israel that actually lived with at our home, and said, I said, can you map people out of tornadoes, right? And he said, well, yeah, we do. That's what Waze is all about. It's WAZE. It's a mapping app that was Israeli, that was bought by Google in the last year. And anyway, I had a friend that worked at the National Weather Service. I said, hey, you said there were 30-some tornadoes on the ground that day that the tornadoes hit Albany. He said, yeah, we know where they are. We know exactly where they are. This new dual polar radar. We know all that. So anyway, long story short, a little over $250,000 later, we built an app called Tornado Free, and it is tornado free for 2 reasons. We wrestle with that name, but Tornado Free, it frees you out of the path of the tornado, and it's free because I just didn't want to charge our people to save their lives and that are in our communities. So long story short, Tornado Free, what it does, it tells you when there's a tornado on the ground and you are in the path of it, and it maps you safely out of it. And
so that's tornado free. So it's just
Tornado Free, FREE. Okay. You can go to tornadofree.com. It's all free. You can download it on your iPhone or Android. It's all free. Just
so
download
anybody
it. Tell your
can do
friends
it.
about it.
If you're in your car or you're at school or if you're at work, doesn't matter where you are. Anybody can access it.
No. As long as you have cell service, that's the prerequisite. Cell service.
Okay.
An alarm will go off if a tornado's coming in your path. Like if you have 5 acres and you have a double-wide mobile home out in the country someplace, you don't hear any sirens or any of that. It will alert you to that. You get in your car, you'll drive maybe a quarter of a mile to a mile out of the way of it. It'll come through. You go back home and you're alive and your belongings are destroyed, but it is what it is.
But
and
you're
so
alive.
That's right, you're alive. It's a 911 device. I'm a now kind of guy. That's what, we figured out how to do that. And so I sleep at night now very well knowing all of my tenants in my communities have Tornado Free. So it's free for everybody in the United States, anywhere you are or anywhere you're going. Even for truckers that are, that were in Albany that day, we lost a trucker that drove right into it. And
oh my goodness.
His truck was flipped over and destroyed, and he was killed.
Oh.
But now truckers, or you're in your car driving if you're in Kansas, and I'm not pointing at Kansas, but it is Dorothy in Kansas. So there's F5 tornadoes that do drop down in Kansas, and if you're driving into one, it'll stop you, map you out of the way, and you'll be safe. So.
Well,
yeah,
let's spread the word. Everybody go to the tornadofree.com and let your residents know, your employees, your vendors, family members. This is a significant and a very important tool for helping people stay safe. Well, Pat, I want to thank you, and will you come back soon and talk to us more about this? I mean, I think we just, I have a bajillion questions. My mind is really cooking. So I want to thank Pat McKee and all of this fabulous information, and for introducing us to the old idea, it's new again, waiting lists. Love it. So thank you, Pat, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon. Thank you. Call me back. Bye-bye.